everyone, it's Tammy with Shabby Fabrics. I am joining you today with the On Wander Lane Wall Hanging Club. This is such a fun wall hanging. I love the birds. It's springtime and we're all seeing robins and all kinds of birds all around. I just love that. So if you are new to applique and you are just seeing this video for the first time, you need to go back to Loveland Cottage. Loveland Cottage, we did that one in January. It was the February wall hanging, and that one took you from start to finish on how to do your applique. It showed the thread set that you need. If you're still needing the thread set, we might still have one available. Otherwise, just pick a coordinating thread to do your applique with. But your center block is done the same every single time with your pre-fused laser cut applique. We thank Nancy Halverson for allowing us to do pre-fused laser cut with her beautiful designs. We love Nancy. She's such a talented designer. We just thank her for allowing us to bring you this tutorial. The other thing that I think you should grab are the project bags. These are the Wander Lane project bags. These are Quilt As You Go. This is a kit by June Taylor. We kitted this. Oh, these are so much fun. What a great place to keep your blocks, to keep your scraps, to keep your patterns and your books in. I find when I do a series like this, I'm often a little bit scattered in my sewing room. And these project bags will definitely help keep you on track, keep you organized, which I love. I'm using Aurifil thread today. And if you're new to Aurifil, pick up this Carrera black, white, and dark gray thread set. You will have thread to stitch with for a very long time. Aurifil thread is our favorite here, and we do use it almost exclusively upstairs in the sewing studio. Little touch of hand embroidery in this one. There are 3 French knots. Again, I'm going to have you refer back to the Loveland Cottage where Jen did demonstrate all of the embroidery stitches that you need for this club. But I do have the Richard Hemming embroidery needles, floss, and of course the buttons. I have a needle threader, some thread magic, some wonder clips you need for your binding, and of course my ultimate favorite is the extra fine patchwork pins. I love these. These are by Clover, and I use them exclusively when I am doing any type of piecework. I love those pins. I have my size 80-12 needle. I'm using a Schmetz top stitch needle in the machine today. If you're doing applique, I recommend getting the Super Non-Stick. Again, a size 80-12 will be fine. You can do your applique, I should mention, you can do that right now. After you get all your pieces fused down to your block, you're ready to go. Go ahead and do your applique stitches if you like, or you can put the whole wall hanging together, layer it with batting and backing, and then do your applique. It gives definitely a unique look, and then you're quilting and appliquing at the same time. I love that look on a project. Fresh blade in your rotary cutter, definitely a must. Clover seam ripper, I'm going to hope we don't need that today, but I do always have that next to my machine. If you haven't replaced your seam ripper lately, I would suggest grabbing a new one. It's, again, a seam ripper does go dull. That blade just on the inside there does get dull. And tearing out seams is never fun, of course, but with a new seam ripper, it makes it much faster. Friction pen, we'll be using that. I do have the seam setter guide, the seam guide setter, and the 1/4 inch guidelines. If you struggle with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, this is definitely your friend. I would highly recommend picking those up. Whenever you're sewing patchwork like this, we do have some fairly small pieces. Don't get intimidated, just follow along. We're going to put this into chapters, this video. So if you're doing the bird block, you're doing the bird in the nest, you're doing the flower block, or you're doing this art square block, you'll be able to go right to that part in the video. You're not going to have to watch the whole thing again to find the part that is relevant for what you need. The last thing I have is the diagonal seam tape, and that's by Cluck Cluck Sew. We're going to do some sew and flip today, and so we normally just draw the line. We're either going to draw the line, use a corner clipper, or the diagonal seam tape and on the machine. I do have a rotating mat today, the Creative Grids rotating mat. We will be using that. We're going to use a new tool today. I'm going to introduce you to the Creative Grids Ultimate Flying Geese tool for one of our blocks. That's a lot of fun, and I love how accurate that tool is. So we'll see that, okay? So I'm going to grab my stuff, and we'll get started. All right, here we go. Let's get started. Look at this cute bird block. How cute is this? I love this. So I made one ahead of time. Part of it is to show you where we're going. The other part is to show you how we press here. I am a firm believer in nesting seams. And anytime I find I can nest my seams together, I'm going to find a way. But I pass that on to you so that you can nest your seams as well and have nice sharp points. Like in this bird's beak right here in his tail, just it works. Okay, so we're going to lay that there so that we know where we're going. All right. So when you're cutting all of your pieces, if you're following, let me grab our guide here. We have made a convenient cutting guide right here, okay? So that you can cut all your pieces for all your blocks. But it's going to get a little bit confusing when you start referring to the directions because the directions are in black and white, okay? Our pictures are in color so that you can easily identify your fabrics. I suggest that you go through and label all of your fabrics with the letter it pertains to. I labeled my fabrics and it made it so much easier to go through and make these blocks, okay? So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to make the wing on this. So we can do this a couple of different ways. So let's take a look at this. We have our little M blocks and our N rectangle. And I know I need to place him right sides together, just like this. Now the traditional way to do this is, of course, to take a friction pen or a pencil or something like that and make a line corner to corner, right? We've all done this, okay? Another way to do it is to use a Creative Grids folded corner clipper. I love a corner clipper. The one thing I do when I use a corner clipper is I'm going to mark a line ever so slight just so I know which way my angle is going because it's very easy to get confused when you're cutting. Remember that you're cutting this away, right? You're not drawing a line, you're just going to cut. Before you cut, double check, all right? So I know I'm going to cut this and I want my angle to go this direction. I have a 1.5 inch square here and you can see how it fits perfectly in the footprint of this corner clipper right here. We're going to take a rotary cutter and I'm going to cut that little triangle away. Now I've already cut my seam allowance so I don't have to trim it like I do this one. I'm going to take a pin and I'm going to put it along the bottom of my square just like this. This is going to hold these 2 points in place. I know these are going to stay together because that's where I'm going to start sewing. But when I finish sewing, I know these 2 points are going to come apart. They just want to travel apart. I have a hard time with those staying together. So if I pin anywhere in something like this, it's going to be right here at the end, right at the bottom to make those corners stay together. All right, so let's go sew that. All right, so the first thing I want you to notice is when I put this on my machine, I have that guideline seam guide is attached, and you can see my fabric comes right up against it at a perfect 1/4 inch because I set this on the machine that way. The other thing you'll notice is this tape right here. I can move this out of the way. This tape by Cluck Cluck Sew. You're going to see a 1/4 inch mark on either side of the red line. Now when I set this on here, do you see the red line is where my needle is? This is in the center of my presser foot. So as I'm sewing, if I keep this point right along the red line, I don't have to draw a line. I know exactly where the center is. I'll show you how this works. All right, so now we're gonna press. So I'm gonna press this open. I'm gonna press it up and away. Okay, we'll get my iron. I'm using a Panasonic iron today. I love this iron. It's got a nice tip on it right here for pressing seams open. And we will press a couple of seams open right here on the back of our block when we assemble this. But for right now, I'm just going to finger press this up and now press this. Now I'm using a wool pressing mat. I love a good wool pressing mat. Okay, so we've done that. Now the other one I need to do is at the bottom. So he goes on this side down here. And again, you can use a corner clipper, or I'm just going to take this to the machine. I'm not going to do anything to it. I know I'm sewing from this corner to this corner, so I'm going to put a pin just like this. Okay, hang on to that. Let's just go sew it. Okay, there we go. Trim our threads. I am going to trim it here, 1/4 inch. Press. Keep that seam up a little bit and press. Give that a good press. Okay, so that's the wing of our bird. Okay, so now let's move on to his body. Okay, so I'm going to take my wing and I'm going to start building my block over here. All right, so we can see where we're going. So here's our wing. All right, here's the front body. So I have a directional fabric here. Do you see how these vines are going up? In this background, all of these vines are traveling up in the same direction. Okay, so whenever I have a directional fabric like that, I want to make sure that when I do a sew and flip corner, these vines are still going up like I want them. Here's how I do that. I hold the fabric right side up. This is how it goes. And I fold it like this in half. And I know this is where it's going to go, right? Just like that. That's exactly what I want that block to look like. Let go of it. Ha! You see that crease you made right there? That's where you're going to sew or cut if you're going to use a corner clipper, or draw the line if you're going to use a friction pen. All right? Right here. So you can see how I put that fabric on there. Do you see it's on there sideways? This is how the fabric is laying on my piece. Right sides together. But when I sew on this and flip this down, that's how that is going to look. All right? So I have done that ahead of time, right here. So let's go ahead and trim it and press. All right, and the body goes right here. Okay. The next piece I have for you is the head. So for the head, I'm going to use this piece, a C and a D. And again, we have directional fabrics here, okay? So again, the same thing. I know this one is in the upper corner, so I'm going to fold him like this, right? That's how I want him to go. You can just crease that with your nail, just like that. This one goes in the other upper corner. I want him to look like this. You see how easy that is? It just takes the stress out of directional fabrics right out. When I just fold that and put it on there, it's like, yep, I can confirm that's exactly what I want. Let it go, there's your mark. Sew on that, and you've got it. Here is that piece, and that is exactly what I have done ahead of time, just like that. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and trim this out. I used to always be intimidated by directional fabrics, especially with sew and flip. I knew I had to come up with a way that was almost foolproof to figure out how to do this accurately 100% of the time. And I do still double check directional fabrics. They still freak me out just a little bit. All right, there we go. Okay, there's our head. The next piece I have is the tail. All right, so we've got 3 more directional fabrics. We've got 2. This one overlaps. So we'll do this one together. Get rid of some of this. All right, so we're going to sew and flip these 2 like this. Press. I'm always setting my seam and then opening that up and pressing that out. Okay, just like that. All right, now this one goes in the upper corner right here. This is how he looks. So I'm going to fold him like this, like that, finger press it, boom. I know right where that goes. I love that. Let's go ahead and just draw the line on this one. Okay. Get this on here. I'm going to put a pin on this side right here because I'm going to start sewing over here to this corner, and I know that's going to try and move on me. So we'll pin that. All right, let's go sew that. All right, let's just double check that one more time, just to make sure I did put that on there correctly. It never hurts to double check it. Would that take me a second just to make sure it's correct? I like that. Now I will cut it and press it. Okay, our little bird is coming together. Look at that. All right, he has a tail, a wing, a body, and a head. Perfect. All right, let's set these pieces aside. All right, the next thing, let's do his beak. All right, so now I have another fabric that is a directional fabric. Actually, they're both directional. I have, this is where we're going. So I'm going to put a square on the end of this and one on this. So let's look at this little square. So I want his beak, I want the stripe running horizontal. So we're going to fold it again in half. There we go. Turn it over. This piece is so small. I'll let go of it. Now you can see it. There we go. That's what I want that piece to look like. This is how it goes on there. So you can see it goes on straight up and down, and when you flip it, it's sideways. I know it messes with my head too. Anyways, cute little stripe. Put one on here and one on here, just like this. All right? Let me tell you what I did here. Here's a pressing tip right away. These 2 seams nest together right here, and I want that little beak to be a perfect point. So I pressed the top of the beak back towards the background, and I pressed the bottom one towards the yellow beak. And I did that, so when I put these 2 pieces together like this, let's go ahead and just do that. You see how these seams now lock together? Oh, I love a good nested seam. Look at that. That is perfect. I can feel those seams just lock right together. I know that point is going to be perfect when this comes out. Doesn't matter how small it is. Just like that. Now I'm going to pin that right here so that I'm hanging on to this whole thing all together. This is nested this way. This one's right here. Okay, so I'm just going to go put a 1/4 inch straight across the top. All right, so now we have our seam in there. I am going to press this seam open. Let's take a look at how we did. Oh, see, look at that. It's perfect. It's exactly what I'm looking for. I'm going to press this seam open, just like this. Pressing points open will also sharpen your points because you're distributing the bulk of that seam allowance away from the point. It will help sharpen your points. So if your points aren't real sharp, but you know you've hit it, you can't figure out why, try pressing your seams open. It will make a difference. All right, there's our bird beak. How cute is that? I love it. Okay, the last thing you make are the legs. And to do that, we need H and F, 2 P and a G. Whoop, get on there. Okay, everybody's going the right direction. I like that, right? Got this whole vine thing going on here today. All right, so now let's take a look at when we put these all together like this. Here's what that looks like. Here's what I have. Let's take a look and see how I press that. I press them all one direction. I'm going to turn this over. I'm going to press them all to the right. I know, you think I'm going to the left, but I'm not because the piece is turned over. So when you look at it this way, you realize all my seams went to the right. I just turned it over so that I could press that. You see how I did that? I just pulled on this ever so slightly and just ran my iron right along those seams, right along the back. Quick and easy. All right. There's his cute little skinny legs. I love it. Okay, let's put our bird together. All right, let's assemble this. Now, how do we go about doing that? All right, first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to start in the center and I'm going to put his wing to his body. All right. Again, I'm going to pin that at the bottom because I know those points are coming apart on me. You can put another pin in there if you want to. Do not be shy about adding pins. I've never been sorry when I put in an extra pin. All right, I'm going to go sew this. All right, so now on this one, I press this to the body. Sometimes when I look at a seam and you're like, how am I supposed to press this? Let's take a look at what the seam is telling us it wants to do. You see how it's trying to fold that direction? Well, let's just let it do that, right? There's nothing there hindering that seam going that direction. There's no points, there's no patchwork, there's nothing. You see it just laid right over, perfect. All right, so let's put our body back down. Here we go. Next thing, let's put the head on. All right, so the head, I have nothing here as nesting. So I'm going to pin the end, so I definitely don't want those coming apart. Now I can see I have a seam allowance that's going that direction. So I'm actually going to put another pin right there to hang on to that seam allowance. I don't want that to flip as I'm sewing across that. All right, so I'm going to sew from here to here. All right, now this seam, I have a lot going on here. I have a point right here. I have other stuff. I actually opted to press this seam open. So now my handy iron comes into play. Look how nice that worked. This tip on this iron is just amazing for pressing seams open. So that one kind of got turned a little. Let me fix that. All right, there we go. And then I'll press it again from the front. There we go. Nice. All right, he's coming together. All right, let's add his tail. All right, now this seam right here, I want these 2 points to match. So I'm going to take a pin. I'm going to show you. This is a 1/4 inch about right here. Ah, that's perfect. You see how I poked that through at a 1/4 inch on this one is a 1/4 inch hitting this point right here. That's exactly where I want that. So to get that, I just lined up these two edges right here on the cream. And I let this be my guide as to how far down this wanted to go. I didn't start from the back end of this. I started from this end on the left. Okay, because this end, it matches as well. But if it didn't, I would make it match. You can pull it a little bit. You've got some give in this a little bit of give. Let's put a pin in the middle here. Okay, I think that looks really good. Let's go ahead and go give this a stitch or two. Okay, that's in. All right, I'm going to press this seam open as well. Now I want you to look. Look at that point. It's perfect. This one is up a 1/4 inch because we're going to sew across the bottom of the tail. That's correct. So I'm going to press this one open. Just like that. And give that a little bit of steam and just hang on to it. I'm not pushing my iron back and forth. I'm just holding that iron in place because I want that to flatten out, and it did. That flattened out nicely. Oh, look at that. And then I turn this other one at the same time. Whoops. Let's fix that. There we go. All right. Okay, so let's look at what's next. Here's our bird. Here's our legs. Here's our beak. I can't put his beak on yet. I need to add his legs. The beak is going to be last. So let's flip this up and put his little legs on. None of these seams intersect. That's intentional. All right, you didn't do it wrong. You're fine. You did not do it wrong, I promise. Oh, I have two options. I can sew it from this way up, or I can sew it from this way up. I think I'm going to pick this way because you see how all of these seams are going the same direction? If I put this on the bed of my sewing machine, all these seams are just magically going to stay in place. Then I only have to watch a couple of them up front here. So let's do that. So I'm going to pin the bottom of this first. Get my edges even here. We'll pin this. And I'm going to pin the top. Or not the top, I should say it's the side on the left. So you're pinning the beginning and the end. That's what I should say. Beginning and the end. There we go. All right. So you can see how these two come apart a little bit. I'm just going to give that some gentle pressure and grab a hold of this. Because I want this to stay open. That seam allowance, stay open right there. Let's pin this together. I think that's about it. Maybe one more pin right here to hold this seam so it doesn't flip. All right, so I have 5 pins in this. All right, let's go see what happens. All right, let's see how we did here. Take our pins out. Let's give that a little bit of heat and decide where we want that to go. I'm going to push all of this down to the legs, just like that. Trying to press the seam open, you can if you like, but trying to press it open might be difficult because you've got all these seam allowances, all of these seam allowances. I'd rather push the points back onto the patchwork. That's why I chose to go that way. Look at that. How cute is he? I love that. You see how this point came out perfect? And I just press that right away. Okay? All right. Here's our last little guy. We're going to put his little beak on. Here we go. so I don't think anything nests here. So I'm going to pin at the end of my seam, and I'm going to pin at the beginning of my seam. We're going to see how it all wants to kind of shift together here. See this? Gentle pressure, and I can make this all just fall right into line like I want it. Now I'm going to put a few pins in this because I want this seam to stay laying like that. I want this one to stay where he is. I'm going to make these nice and even and pin these open seams. I come in on this side and out on that side, and it holds that seam allowance open so it's not going to go anywhere on me. All right, I like that. Okay, let's go sew that. Okay, so let's look at how our block is. Let's take a look. Oh, I just love that. He is so cute. All right, so let's warm this seam up because I already know what I'm going to do here. I'm going to press this seam open. All right, so I'm going to start down here at the bottom. And I'm just going to start opening this up like this. We'll run our iron along just like this. See how it just opens that seam right up for me? Perfect. Give it a little steam. You really mean it because you want it to stay there, right? Turn it over. Let's give it another press. This is such a cute block. Oh, I just love this little bird. I could just make a bunch of them, I think. All right, there's our little bird block. So cute. Measures 6.5 inches. You're going to make 2 of them for this quilt. All right, so I will see you in a minute for our next block, which is the bird in a nest. All right, here we are to make the chick in a nest. I just love this little block. These are so cute. These are perfect for spring. Let me turn it over. Here's where we're going, and you can see we only had one seam that I pressed open out of this whole block. Very cool. All right, so let's set him up here, and let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do his head. Now on this adorable fabric, I chose to make my head, the stripe, go up and down. If you want it to go sideways, you can definitely do that. Make it your own. Do whatever you like. All right, so we're going to sew and flip again. Same thing. What's nice, this background, not directional. I know, right? I was happy. Directional backgrounds are a challenge. Okay, this one is much easier. Draw the line, corner clipper, or use a cluck sew. Sew in the center, just like this. I drew the line on this one. Sew, trim, and press. Let's do that really quick. On this, there's nothing that's going to touch this, right? Because it's all going to background. So on this, I can just simply press right to my background, just like that. Make sure that lines up. Perfect. All right, so if you don't sew directly on the line that you have sewn, you will have variance in how this looks. This should still be the same size as it was. Let's do this and test this. Oh, it's pretty close. They're a little wonky, but they're not bad. Okay, that's what that needs to look like. All right, let's put these aside. Let's put our head out. Okay. What's next? Well, his little beak is next, of course. So cute. So we're going to take our D and H pieces here I have cut. Again, sew and flip on the ends, just like this. Trim and press. Same thing. Okay, I'm going to point something out here to you. When you turn this, you see how this is not a 1/4 inch. It's not supposed to be. Don't think you've made a mistake if you don't have a 1/4 inch. This is not supposed to be a point. See how his little mouth is open? So there's a gap right here between these two triangles. Don't think that you've messed up if you don't have a 1/4 inch right here. You're not supposed to. All right? That made me stop and look. I had to go, oh, what did I do when I first made that? Okay, now we're simply going to take other pieces and just lay in here. These are all cut and labeled, so I knew where they go. Here's the backgrounds, all going around his little head. There we go. All right, let's make the nest. Again, very, very simple. We have F and I, like that. Whoop. Bottom corner, just right in, just like this. Let's trim it, press it, and put our block together. This one was much faster, wasn't it? Look how quick we did that. I love it when a block comes together this quick. All right, here we go. Here's our nest. So cute. All right, there we go. Extra pieces. Okay, so let's look at how in the heck do we assemble all this? Well, let's leave that up here. Okay, let's start in the middle again. I like to start in the middle. Let's put the top on the bird's head. All right, to do that, we're going to put these pieces right sides together, just like that. I'm going to put a pin in this right here on the end, like I always do. And I'm going to go sew this from here to here. Okay, now on this, I'm going to press this towards the rectangle that I just put on, because there's no seams in that. I like that. Now these are kind of narrow, so you're going to want to just kind of finger press that in and then put your iron on it. That way your seam is not going to get all twisted. It stays nice and flat and straight, just like that. Okay, there's his head. I can go ahead and attach this one to the side. I'm going to pin the end of the seam first. Then I'm going to look at the beginning. Perfect, those match together perfectly. I'm just going to go sew that here to here. All right, again, I'm going to press to the rectangle that I just added because there's no seam allowances there. There we go. And press. Okay, there's part of her head. Now let's do the beak. This rectangle to here, this one to here. Right sides together. We'll start at the top and work our way down. All right, I'm going to sew this one, and then I'm going to go ahead and put this one on the bottom, and when I come back, we'll put them all together. All right, so we're back, and now the same as before. I'm going to press to both rectangles because there's no piecing there. Very careful with these little skinny ones. And I'm not using steam here, I'm just using the heat on this iron. Pressing this open. I don't want this to get misshapen or twisted, and it seems sometimes that will happen when I use steam. All right, that's exactly what I want. This piece is going to go on top of here, and we'll have our chick done. Then we will add him to the nest, and this block is done already. How cool is that? All right, I'm going to pin this. Oh, I think I better put a pin at the beginning because I have a seam back here that's going to flip, so I'm going to put a pin there. Maybe another pin. Pins are free, right? No problem. I got lots. All right, here we go. And so here to here, I'll be right back. All right, let's see how we did here. Let's warm up that seam. I believe this one is open. Yep, this is the one open seam that I did on this entire block, was right here. See how that just, this part wants to go this way, this wants to go this way. It's like, yeah, how about we just go open and you guys just split the difference and work it out here. There we go. Give that a little steam. Beautiful. A little more steam from the top, and I'm just going to hold my iron there, just heat. I want it to definitely set that seam, and I want it flat. This wool pressing mat will help with that. That is flat. I like it. Okay, now the top of the chick goes down to the nest, and he fits really well. Okay, we're going to pin the end like this, and pin the beginning like this. Now if you have a little bit of gap here, you're just going to give slight pressure like this. I'm just slight pressure on both ends, and that just kind of, it just kind of evens everybody out. Grab a hold of your seams with your fingers and put a pin in there. Then any amount that your excess you have, like if your nest was too big, that's another reason why I would sew at the nest on the bottom. If your nest is too big because you have all these seams here and this is now a little bit too small, by doing it this way, giving it a little pressure, making these seams pull ever so slightly, the nest is on the bottom, the nest is slightly larger. The feed dogs will take in that excess on the nest and gradually ease that in for you. So you're not going to have a big tuck in there unless this is seriously smaller than this. But your feed dogs will do a lot of that work. Okay, let's see how we did. Oh, that is so cute. All right, we are going to press towards the nest on this because there's no seams in that. Right open. Wow, he is so cute. All right, here's our little baby birdie. Can go join his mama. All right. I would wait to add the buttons to these birds' eyes, by the way, until I already had quilted this wall hanging. All right, you're going to want to do that very, very last. All right, here's our chick. Here's our mama bird. I'll be back with the next one in just a minute. Okay, I am back. This is the flower block. I love this flower block. It's got many layers to it. So cute. And I love the little leaves floating out in the corners. Very cute. All right, so here we go. This block is made in quadrants. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Basically, this block is 100% sew and flip. Again, label your pieces so that you understand directionality if that is important to you. When I made this block, I made sure that all of these stripes were all traveling in the same direction. I made sure all of my vines were all traveling in the same direction. If that's important to you, you're going to want to take a little bit of time and follow these steps. All right? So let's look at how to make a block. The first quadrant was easy. And I'm just going to call this number 1. All right? I just did sew and flip just like we did. I pressed everything as you would expect. Okay? Out. Everything went out. All right? This is number 1. Now when I made number 2, I did this a little bit different. Let me move these pieces out of the way and I will show you why. Block 2, the leaf sits over here. You see, this is how that goes. So you could make 4 of them just like this, and your stripes are going to rotate with your block. So they start here, but you see how that stripe rotates? Here it's going to be right side up. Here it's going to be rotated. So if you're okay with that, just make 4 of these and you're good. But if you want to fussy this like I did, you're going to want to make each one of these separately, all right? And so I laid them out and I just watched what I was doing. So on block number 2, I am going to make sure this piece is going into this upper corner, right? This piece is in this lower corner, and I did label my blocks 1, 2, 3, and 4, okay? The other thing we're going to do, let me go ahead and trim this, and I will explain why I'm going to press 2 of these blocks differently than the other 2. When I put this together with this, these seams need to nest. Well, I pressed this green one toward the green, right? We just pressed him regular. This one, I need to press this back towards the apricot, back toward that orange, light orange. So I need to press him back, and I'm also going to press this one back to the orange, just like that, okay? So let me show you how to do that. Whenever I'm pressing a different direction, I always start with the fabric I'm pressing towards facing me, all right? So if I'm pressing this one out, I know that this is going like this and this is going like this, but that's not how I want to do that. Instead, I want that apricot fabric towards me, all right? So I'm looking at the back of it. I put this seam up. The first thing I'm going to do is warm that seam up. Now when I press this like this, see how I lift that up? Let's finger press that seam allowance, just like that. Okay, let's do the same thing again. So I start with the apricot side up, lift, and press. This puts that seam allowance right where I want it. It's now pressed towards the apricot. You see that? Okay, so let's go ahead and look at doing the rest of this block. So I can look at this one for reference. This one goes in this upper corner. So again, you look how you want this, right? Remember we did this in the last, or in the bird block actually, this is in the first block we did this. Directional seams, fold it the way you do it, draw your line. I can go ahead and put a pin in that because I know that's exactly where I want that to go. Being careful to place it exactly in the corner. Take a couple minutes here. Oh, let's pin it this direction, I think. That way that pin will stay out of the way of my sewing machine. Okay, this one is right here. So this is how I want that. Yes. This is how I want that. So my vines are traveling up, just like this. I can already see I'm going to sew over my number 2. Let's move him up there. Okay. That's how I want that. So I'm actually going to draw a line corner to corner on this. There we go. All right. Corner to corner. All right, I'm going to start here and sew to here. So I'm going to put my pin on this side, just like that. Okay, so I'm going to go sew these, and I'll be back, and we'll trim it and press it. All right, so we're back. I'm going to go ahead and trim this up. Trim both to 1/4 inch. All right. Now we're going to, remember we're pressing towards the apricot. So again, I have the light orange is up. I'm going to press this seam right here, give it some heat, and lift, pressing all of this up. You have to coax this a little bit sometimes. See that? Okay, this one, same thing. We're going towards the apricot here. There we go. All right. All right, block 2 is looking really good. Now all I need is a little pink. Come here, a little F. All right, and that's going to go in this bottom corner. So now we already did a sew and flip. Now we're going to do a double sew and flip. So now I'm going to put him in this bottom corner, just like this. This is not directional. I'm going to put a pin in this, and I'm going to go sew this. Okay, let's give this a quick trim and press this. Now again, I'm going to press towards the white because I want to press this. All of this needs to come back into the center of the block. Just like that. Let's look at that from the back. See that? Everybody's just kind of back here. Just like that. Okay, that is how you make block 2. All right? When you make block 3, you're going to want to do exactly the same thing. All of these seams are coming back into the center of the block. So 2 and 3, we're pressing towards the apricot, back into the center. Block 1 and 4 are going out. All right, they're going out to the edges, just like that. Okay, now let's put this one together. So don't panic if this is not a 1/4 of an inch right here. These intersections, it's not supposed to be. You're not going to have a point there. Remember, we're making a flower. You see how these intersect here? You don't have a perfect point right on the tip like you would expect. It's a flower, all right? So let's put these together, and now let's nest all of these seams. Let me grab some scissors and trim these threads out of my way. There we go. All right, so I'm going to first nest these 2 seams, lock that together, and it should come to the end like this. It should come to the end and be even. Now I'm going to put a pin right on that seam allowance where it's nesting so that does not come apart. And that's this perfect point right here. Okay, now I can also nest this center with this cream and this cream, that cream vine. I can now nest those 2 seams together. That's my next one I'm nesting. And again, I'm going to put a pin right on that seam allowance, right there. Now the last one is my 2 little centers. I can nest these as well. You can see these edges are even, but I'm really worried about this seam right here. I want that nested right there. I'm going to put a pin right there. Okay, so I have 3 pins in this block. One where this is nested, and this one is nested. All right, I'm going to start here and go to the end. All right, let's see how we did. Let's open this up and take a look. Oh, see, that looks really, really good. You see how these came to a point, this came to a point, and this came to a point, exactly like I had hoped. Now, how do you think I'm pressing this? Yep, open. You got it. Whenever you want to sharpen points, you're going to press this open. So I heat that seam up, lay it on the back, and then I run my iron right down the center of this. This one does not want to cooperate. There it goes. Give it a little bit of steam and press that flat. Okay, Beautiful. All right, I'm going to put these together, and then when I come back, we'll sew all together and make our flower block. All right, we're back. I have 1, 2, 3, and 4. Let's put them all together. This is one of the trickiest seams because you've got so much going on all the way across. Let me grab my scissors here and trim my little threads. Okay. So I'm going to start in the center of this block. I know, you're like, Tammy, most of the time you're starting on one end or the other. Yeah, not this one. I'm starting in the very center where these points come together. So both seams are pressed open. So I'm going to put a pin on both sides. Yep, you heard me. Both sides of that are getting a pin, just like that. Okay? Next, now you can just work one side to the other. And again, we're nesting all the way along. These seams are nesting. It is so nice to have nesting seams. I just love that. I'm going to nest the creams together. There we go. And now I'm going to nest this green, my little leaf, and my background. They go right together. Put a pin in there, just like that. All right, go back to the center. Now work my way forward. Nest the centers. There we go. Let's nest the creams again. Like that. Beautiful. All right, and now let's nest this background in the leaf, just like that. Okay, I have a really good feeling about this. How many pins have I got in that? I only have 8 pins. I know it seems like a dozen. There's only 8 of them there. All right, let's go sew this at the machine and see how we did. All right, let's get all my pins out here. All right, let's open it up for a quick look. Oh, I'm liking what I see. I think everybody is nested right where I want them. I'm going to turn this over. Let's warm that seam up first before we get there. Like that. Now let's open that up, and this seam is again going open. You knew that, right? Here we go. All the way along. I just wiggle that iron a little bit. Sometimes it'll pick it up. There we go. Give it a little bit of steam. All right, turn it over. I'm definitely going to give it some steam from the front and just hold that heat there. Just holding that down, giving that a nice good press, straight down. That block is nice and flat. There we go. There's our flower block. I love it. We can take our little stickers off. I don't think they're permanently adhered. I did press them. Nope, they come off. All right. There we go. There's our flower block. I'll be back in a minute and show you the last one. All right, everybody, I'm back. This is the last block for our wall hanging. This is the art square block. This is what that looks like. This is a fun block. Now I have a couple of fun tools I'm going to show you to make this block quick and easy. All right? In our cutting instructions, we have given you an option. If you own the Ultimate Flying Geese ruler, or you purchase an Ultimate Flying Geese ruler after you see how amazing this makes flying geese perfect and quick. I love that in a tool. It's exactly what I buy a tool for. If I can do it much faster and my blocks are perfect, that's a reason to buy a tool. This Ultimate Flying Geese tool is probably our most used tool in the sewing studio. We use this tool almost every day. All right, so our favorite tool is what we're going to show you. I'm going to pair that with a Creative Grids rotating mat. I love the Creative Grids mat. It's 14 inches square, so a 12 by 12 block fits on here if you're squaring something up. Love this mat. It's beautiful. I'm also going to use the little Creative Grids seam guide. I'm going to show you this little guy. All right, you might have one and forgot why did I buy that? What am I doing with that little tool? I'll show you. Okay, so let's set these aside for a second and talk about the block. So the first thing, I don't know why I have the seam ripper in my hand. I'm not going to use that. We're going to put it up there. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is you're going to fussy cut your center. This is out of the house's fabric, and for that, I used a 3.5 by 3.5 inch square ruler. Perfectly fit, just like this. Now I did trace around this block with a friction pen first before I cut them out, just to make sure that I could get the houses where I wanted them. And if I had two that were butting up a little too close, quickly with an iron, erase and start over. Very simple. Okay, so fussy cut your little houses out. So we have our house in our center. Let's put him right there. That was the easy part. All right, so now let's look at traditional flying geese. I'm going to show you that method first. All right, so we're going to cut rectangles and squares. And again, you know what I'm going to tell you. Sew and flip, right? I know you saw that coming. All right, so we're going to put our triangle on here. We're going to trim it. I'm going to press this towards the triangle, just like that. I'm going to put another one on like this. Sew on the line, trim and press. All right, I'm going to do that 4 times for this block. All right. That's one way to do it. Let me show you an alternate method. We have taken a square, a 4 3/4 inch square. On your ruler, you have a finished size. We are using letter C. These finish to 1.5 by 3 inches. So I'm going to use all the markings for letter C. This is a finished size of 1.5 by 3. So this flying geese, when it's done, when you get it trimmed up, will measure 2 by 3.5. Okay, so it's important to note that this is a finished size that does not include the seam allowance. All right? Okay, so on here it tells me I need to cut a 4 3/4 inch square, 1, which I have done, and I need 4 2 3/4 inch squares right here. Okay? Let me show you what we do next. I'm going to set this up here. Now we're going to use this handy seam guide. I love this tool. We're told to draw a line down the center of each one of these and sew a 1/4 inch on either side. That's kind of an unknown, right? Is your foot exactly a 1/4 inch? Is it a scant 1/4 inch? How do I know where to sew a 1/4 inch on either side? Well, this seam guide is amazing. I'm going to line this up. You see the points are here and here in the center of the tool, and I know I can do a 1/4 inch on either side. So now that is a perfect 1/4 inch on either side of that. So let's go ahead and mark a couple more of these. So I'm just moving this. How did I do? There it is. I knew I had it, so that was in the center. Center, center. My points are in the center, so I know I'm where I'm supposed to be. I'm just going to mark either side of that, just like that. Okay, let's take a look at that. So I'm going to put 2 squares on my large square, like this. I'm going to use a few pins, and I'm going to pin at the top. So I want to keep my pins away from my sewing lanes. I don't want my pins running next to this lane because that's where my presser foot is going to be, and I know I'm going to run into it. And that does not make me happy when that happens. So I'm going to keep my pins all the way out here on these outer corners, just like this. There we go. Now you can see how these lines intersect and they line up. You also see how I have excess fabric here in the center. Something I like to do is I like to trim that excess fabric out of here. So to do that, you see how they're laying on top of each other. I'm just going to put my finger on the one that's on top, take my little scissors, and I'm just going to cut from here straight across to there. Now when I take these out, you see how those line right up together, just like that. So now I'm going to take this to the machine and I'm going to sew on these lines. Okay, I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. We're going to take our pins out. All right, now I'm just going to cut straight down the center of this. I have two triangles like this. Looks kind of weird. Let's take it to the iron. I'm going to set my seam and I'm going to press toward the triangles. All right, let's do it the easy way. Toward the triangles. Toward the triangles, just like that. Go ahead and do this one too. This one's not laying very flat. Let's coax him back there. There we go. All right. Now I have two triangles like this. I'm going to take my squares. I've marked these ahead of time. And now I'm going to put one here and one here, just like that. I'm going to put a couple more pins in this, again, away from my sewing lanes. The stitching lane, I want to stay away from that with pins for sure. I don't like to stop and take pins out, so I try to keep my pins away from where that presser foot is going to be. All right, I'm going to go sew these. When I come back, we'll get them trimmed up. Okay, let's get these cut in half again, just like we did before. One and two. Oh, these are so fast and easy flying geese. I just love this. All right, I'm going to get these pressed again to the triangle. I'm all kind of in a little tight circle here. Try to minimize my space on my mat. All right, here we go. Now, these are definitely oversized. Let's fix that. Here's the magic of this tool. All right, here we go. A spinning mat makes this so much easier. Okay, we're going to rotate. So let's put a flying geese in the middle. And up here, I'm going to start with trim 1. All right, and again, remember I told you we're looking for the lines marked C. All right, so I'm going to line my C lines up right like that. You can see this intersects here all the way down, okay? And again, it's telling me you're cutting a 1.5 by 3, which is correct. That's my finish size, all right? So I'm going to cut, rotate, cut, rotate. Okay, I'm going to take my tool. I'm now going to slide it down where it says trim 2, and I'm going to find C, and now I follow the dashed lines. Look how that just lays perfectly in there. Oh, I love that. I know I have this exactly where it's supposed to be. Here, here, here. Everything checks out. Again, 1.5 by 3 is right here. That's correct. trim, spin your mat, and trim again. Just like that. And now I have a perfect flying geese, just like that. All right, I'm going to trim the rest of these out and we'll put our block together. All right, so let's put this away and let's put our block together. Here we go. Okay, so the first thing I have is my center. I have a top flying geese. This one I'm going to use as a side because my lines are vertical and I like that. These lines are vertical and this goes like that. Some squares in the corners like this and like this. There's our block. So now to put this together, let me separate these rows a little bit. So I'm going to sew these to these squares to this flying geese, these squares to this flying geese, and I'll be right back. All right, so let's talk about pressing on this. Let's look at this. Already I can see when I open this up on the back, those seams want to lay right to those squares. I'm going to let them go that way. That's exactly where they want to go. That is going to be perfect for what I have in mind here. As you already know, I'm leading toward a nested seam again, right? There we go. So I have a bottom one and I have a top one. All right, just like that. I'm going to sew these to my center block, just like this. I think I'm actually going to put a pin in this one. I'm going to pin the other one while I'm here. There we go. Pin at the end so those corners don't walk away from each other. All right, here we go. Okay, we're back. I'm going to take this. Now when I open this up, do you see which way these seams want to go? They want to go toward the center, and I'm going to let them go. That's exactly what I want them to do. Just like that. All right, now let's put our block together. Just like that, top to the bottom. And again, look at that beautiful nested seam right there. Let's give that a good pin. And pin this one. I'm pinning my intersections first before I even look at the end or the beginning. I want to pin those intersections and get those locked in. Now I am going to put a pin at the end of this, just like that. Okay, so I have 3 pins in there. So I'm going to go ahead and pin this one too at the same time. All right. And this one. So when I sew this, I'm watching for the points, and I'm going to show you exactly where the points are on this block. Grab my seam ripper so I can show you. Right here, there is a little tiny V. Right here where these points cross, that is my point. Here it is here. You can see it on the back, here, and here. So if you've taken your 1/4 inch seam allowances, this is exactly a 1/4 inch down in your seam allowance. That's why it's really important for good points is good seam allowances. Really practice that. 1/4 inch, you see me using the seam guide. I use that all the time. Seam guides are amazing. They definitely keep me on track because sometimes my brain starts to think about other things like what I'm making for dinner or what the kids are doing or whatever. Life enters in your brain and you're not thinking anymore. But if you've got that seam guide, it seems I can just follow that no problem. All right, so I'm going to go sew this and I'll be back and we'll press it out. All right, let's take out our pins and see how we did. It's always the moment of truth, right? Let's open it up. Woohoo! Look at that. All those points are right where I wanted them. Okay, how do we press this? Well, You know my little saying about points, right? Usually if I have points, I'm going to sharpen my points by pressing this open. And that is exactly what I'm going to do right here. I'm going to split this seam, use the tip of my iron just to run along here, just like that. Whoop, don't fold. There we go. And now do the same thing on the other side. This little Panasonic iron does a really good job. Paired with a wool pressing mat, it really does. It's a nice little iron for doing this. Okay, look at that. All right. This is the art square block. There we go. We have a block. Perfect. There we go. Quick, easy, fast flying geese make it so much fun. You could do a lot of these blocks actually. Think about that. You know, if you have a fun fabric you want to fussy cut that and run some fast flying geese around it, you'd have a cute little quilt in no time. Thank you so much for joining me today on this tutorial. I hope you've learned something. I've tried to give you as many tips and tricks as I possibly can about how to get the perfect piecing, nice sharp points, and how to assemble these blocks. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you next time on a Shabby Fabrics tutorial.